Hi, I'm Dwayne Marino from NASA, and you're going through some modules on how to become a sales champion. Now, we should be on page number 5 of your overall workbook. There's a PDF attached to the website with a very thick manual on this sales champion training. Moving through these modules, you're going to find that no two modules are the same. Most will be between 2 to 5 minutes. A few of them, like this one, could be a little bit longer based on the content that I need to go through and the flow that I'm trying to continue with. But again, reference your workbook on page number 5. On the left-hand side, which is really the back of page 4, is where you can actually jot down some of these notes. So if you're looking at page number 5, I would write down a few things on the left-hand side on the back of page 4. And this is called the 4 Ps. The first P that you'll see coming through this, through these modules over and over again, and discuss it right now, is something called principles. And principles are like laws. If I was to take this pen up in the air, it doesn't matter if you're watching this in South America, North America, Europe, or Australia. When I take this pen and throw it in the air, you know it's going to drop. That's a principle. It's a law. You may not like it if you're standing underneath it, but the reality is it's going to. I will be periodically reviewing and pointing out some sales laws, and hopefully you're able to pick them up through the workshops and understand that everything we do day in and day out cannot break the laws of selling, and they are the same across the entire planet. The second P is something called psychology. If you want to become a lawyer, you have to study law, and you have to keep studying law. If you want to become an accountant, you have to study accounting and keep studying accounting. You can't change that. If you didn't want to do that, we'd have a problem. Now, regarding the psychology of selling, there's 2 things you have to really understand well to be a professional salesperson and ultimately become a sales champion. And that is, you have to understand psychology. So principles and psychology. Be a better salesperson, you have to understand sales and people. Those can be easily learned on segments such as these. You can read about them by books, you can surf them on the internet. But if you don't study sales and if we don't understand people well, we'll be breaking the psychological foundation of selling, which is really a fundamental piece. And I would argue that a lot of salespeople do not study sales or people enough. Not necessarily product knowledge, that can be learned on your computer through the resources at the dealership, but sales and people. That's what I mean by psychology. The third P has got to do with practices. Now, I have my own practices, my own sales techniques and strategies that I feel very comfortable with, and I've used many times with customers, and I've picked a lot of them up from some of the best salespeople that I've ever met. The 20, 30, 40, 50 car a month salespeople, the 70 car a month salespeople. In fact, even the #1 salesperson, Joe Girard, is a good friend of mine. He had 174 cars a month was his record. Some of these practices, of course, can vary based on the era and the location and the time in which you're viewing these. They can change based on culture and how the dealership would like you to sell and even your brand. But practices can never break the principles or psychology of selling. There are many sales practices out there that I sort of laugh at or chuckle at that are being taught by the trainers and training companies that really do break the principles and the psychology of selling. You can modify practices to suit your personality and the culture of the store and depending on some demographics of where you're selling, but never, ever, ever let your practices break the principles or psychology of selling. The fourth P is the probability, and I like to write down that word, probabilities. Day in and day out, this is really what we're attempting to sway in our favor. There's statistics relative to the business, and there's overall probabilities when it comes to our life. If you do certain things in your personal life, you will affect the probability of you retiring or retiring the way that you want to and when you'd like to. You can do things that will affect the probability of certain health situations arising later on in your life. And yes, we can do things day in and day out when we sell to affect the probability of us selling more cars, making a little bit more money, and having more fun in doing so. We're always playing with probability. So you'll hear me go over that again and again and again. There's no guarantees in selling. You won't sell everybody a vehicle. In fact, there is the odd person you'll regret selling a car to, and you know who those people are. But if you deal with enough people, there's also the probability that you'll have a few of those in your client base as well. So we're going to use the principles, the practices, and the psychology of solid sales technique and strategies to help positively affect the probability of us being successful. So I'm Dwayne. Please make your notes very clear as we move on to the next module. I'll see you in a few moments.